In this second week, we're going to continue what we started. So the first week you made your first strip, that's on the bottom here. And then you can see I put the stitch marker in the front and I also left the end attached. So I can always easily find my bottom right corner. And then we are going to build it up, strip by strip. So this is going to be the next one. And when that's fastened off, you start here again. Theoretically, after you've made this one, you could also make that one. So if you prefer to do them 2 by 2 or make a different order, that's possible. But of course, you can only do this one after this one's done. Else you have a difficult situation here. For this week, we're going to work up till the 19th strip. So the middle of the project. At the end of this week, your end should be darned in. One thing I want to mention once again is the importance of having horizontal double crochet and vertical double crochet next to each other. And I think by looking at the project like this, so a bit sideways, you can see that these are a bit raised and then these are a bit lower. So this one's a bit higher, that one's a bit lower. And if that continues over your project, you get a very regular way that the project looks. So you see here, this sort of diagonally continues. It's a bit difficult to see. It's a little bit easier when you're zoomed in like this than when you look at it like that. But also when you look at it like that, you can see that these are a bit lower and these are a bit higher. What that means in practice is to please pay attention whenever you attach a new panel. So when you attach a new color, it should always have the double crochet in the opposite direction of the attached blocks. So if you make this one, you see that these are vertical double crochets. So you know that this has to become a horizontal double crochet. In the video, I'll explain the difference between attaching one way and attaching the other way. But you don't notice this when you're working, unless you pay close attention to it. But you will notice it when the blanket is finished and you see that these diagonal lines sort of flip somewhere. And then you have to take everything apart again or just be at peace with the fact that it isn't completely correct. Both options are valid, I think. So check this, please, after every color change that the direction of your new block is opposite of the blocks that are next to it. So this is what we're going to do for week 2. I wish you loads of fun with it. I think after you've made this strip and maybe that strip, then you know what to do and you can just get going and have lots of fun and relax also with all these lovely colors. In this second week, I'm going to describe different methods of join as you go. So we had this join as you go method for the first week. But now we have a join as you go method here, which only attaches to one side. But then the next panel, if you can visualize with me, will attach on both sides. And then sometimes your first block has horizontal double crochets. And sometimes your first block has vertical double crochets. That's important for how you attach your new yarn. So there's different methods to go about attaching your yarn and joining as you go. I will teach them all to you this week, and then you can just merrily go your way. What you want to do is get your stitch marker with the little end that you hopefully kept attached to the bottom and the stitch marker to the front. This way you are sure that this corner is in the right position. What we're going to do then is find the uppermost corner. So that is opposite of the starting thread. And you're going to make a slip stitch in it. And what we're going to do now sounds familiar. We're going to chain 6 And then we're going to make a double crochet into the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th chain from the hook, just like we did in the previous week when increasing. Now we want to attach this black block to the rest of the work. And where we've previously flipped up, that would now put us in the wrong position. Because if you look at the schematic, or if you look at the finished project, we're not going to go to the side of this red panel here, but we're going to go on the top of it. So instead of flipping this, you need to turn it a little bit. And then you end up with your hook in the position you want to be. And that's this stitch between two blocks. So this slip stitch, that's where you want your hook to go into and to make a slip stitch. What we need to pay close attention to now, and I hope you can see it with this black yarn, is that the double crochet here are vertical, and you see the back of this square. And this, because we haven't flipped after making our slip stitch, is of course the front of our little block. And also the double crochets are horizontal. Please double check if this is the case for you as well, that these two are different, both in position of the double crochets, whether they are horizontal or whether they are vertical, and also whether you see them from the front or whether you see them from the back. If you've double checked this, you can chain 3 and look for the stitch between the next two blocks. So this was where you were previously. This is a chain 3 loop, and then here there's the next stitch you want your hook to go into, and make a slip stitch. Now we chain 3 again, and then you turn your work, because you want your next 3 double crochets to go in here. Not your 3 double, but your 3 double crochets to go in there. So you turn your work, and then you make those 3 double crochets into this black loop. So the color that you're working with. What I sometimes see novices with corner to corner do is that they pick this loop instead of this, and that makes your edges look wonky. So please use the chain space that is actually the color that you're working in. Now we're going to work into the chain 3 space of the first black block you made. This should seem familiar because you did this in last week as well. And then chain 3 and make 3 double crochet into that same chain space. I do realize the black may be a bit difficult to see, but I'm hoping with the knowledge of last week it's doable for you. So now you have 3 blocks, one of row 1 and 2 of row 2. So we're ready for row 3. We'll carry on in this way until this first panel of the second strip, or the first color of the second strip, is 16 blocks wide. So where this tiny thing in red is only 6 wide, the black one is going to be 16 wide. So we continue making rows of 2 blocks and attaching them on one side, on the red side. So except from the first block, there will be no chaining 6 in this panel, because on this side you chain 3 and turn, and on this side you chain 3, slip stitch, chain 3. So there's no chain 6s except from the very beginning. When you get to the point where 2 colors meet, you always go into the same stitch as where the next color is in. So what do I mean by this? You chain 3 here to start your new row, and then you find the same little space as where this join is in. and you make a slip stitch. And then you can chain 3 and turn your work. And make 3 double crochet again into the next space. So whenever you reach a join, your slip stitch is going to be into a stitch where there is already a slip stitch. But 2 easily fit together in those. Let me see if there's anything else that comes up when making this first black panel. I don't think so. So I'm going to merrily continue until I have 16 blocks, and then I'll get back to you to show you how to finish off this color. And of course to start with the next, so I can show you the next joining method that uses 2 sides to join instead of 1, which is new, I think. This join as you go technique. I'll get back to you when this black panel is 16 blocks and I can show you how to move forward. So I'm nearly at the end of the panel, and again you have to make sure that you finish it in the right way. So when you've made sure that you have 16 black blocks, or whatever your color of choice is here, next to each other, you have to make sure that that happens for both the bottom row and the top row. So in this case, my bottom row is 16 blocks and my top row is 15. So what I'm going to do is to fill this last block is make sort of a half row. So you don't make 2 blocks like you've been doing, but you only make 1. And like we have discussed previously, it is tempting to say, okay, well, I've made that last block and I'll just make a slip stitch and fasten off. But please also, with this panel and all the panels to come, remember to chain 3 at the end of your color and then make a slip stitch into the chain space of the last block you made. Then you can chain 1 and then you can cut your yarn and pull through. That way you are sure that there's a chain 3 space here and here, so it looks a bit more symmetrical overall, and also it just makes sense to do this. So you want to end up at the corner and not in the middle of your panel. So this was method A for joining, and method A you will always see at the edge of your blanket, at the beginning edge of the blanket. So every strip that you starts with method A for attaching your yarn. Now we're going to go to the second color of this strip, and I'm going to show you method B for attaching your yarn. For method B, we're going to use when you want to start with horizontal double crochet. So here you see vertical, and here you can also see vertical, and that's correct because the diagonal should always be the same, both in that we see the back here and also in that we see vertical double crochet here. That goes through and through all of the strips and panels we add. It's a bit difficult to see in black. You'll see it when we do the green one. So what we want to do is we want to make horizontal double crochet here. I'm going to show you how. You put a slip knot on your hook. You go into that same space as where you put your black join. So in that slip stitch between 2 blocks. And you're going to attach your yarn. That's step 1. Next, you're going to chain 3. And what we can do again, like we did for the previous colors, is make the first one with both threads. So both your slip knot end and the long yarn. Then we're going to chain 2 more. So for a total of 3 chain. And then we're going to make a slip stitch in between these 2 black blocks. And for that you need to turn your work a little bit. I'm also, again, going to try and make my little yarn end disappear. So I'm going to make a slip stitch into that slip stitch between these two black blocks. Forgive me that it's not very clear to see, but that's when you work with black yarn. So there's two blocks here, there's a slip stitch in between, and you slip stitch into it just like you've done for the joins so far. And then you're gonna chain 3, turn your work back again, put this little thread on top of your chain 3 space, and then we're going to make 3 double crochet into the chain space you just made. So not lower into the black chain 3 space, but actually into this green chain 3 space you just made, or of course again whatever color you are using. And then you're going to make a slip stitch in between these two blue blocks. So now to double check, which you should always do at the beginning of your new color, is that these double crochets are facing horizontally, and these are vertically, and these are vertically. And that's the way it's supposed to be. So for row 2, we're going to chain 3. Make a slip stitch into this same space as where the kind of purplish pink yarn is coming from. Yarn over, pull through both, that's the slip stitch. Chain 3, turn your work, and make 3 double crochet into this same chain space you just made. Now we can make a slip stitch into this next chain space of the green block, chain 3, and make 3 double crochet into that same chain space. Now you see this is where your previous panel ended. There's this end coming from it. And you're going to make a slip stitch into that final slip stitch you made to fasten off that previous block. And that's your second row for your second color of your second strip. From here on out, you're only having to join on one side again. So it's the same process as you did for the black. So we're going to chain 3, make a slip stitch into that chain 3 space of the last made block, chain 3, make 3 double crochet into that same space, then make a slip stitch into the next chain space, chain 3, make 3 double crochet into the same chain space, and then make a slip stitch in between the next 2 blocks of the first strip. You're going to continue this same pattern, what you've been doing for this one, you're going to do here, until you have 12 green little blocks next to each other, attached on one side to your first strip. So we're going to make 12 of these green blocks next to each other and 2 high. This is what happens in the entire middle of the blanket. Only the panels on the sides will differ in width, but the panels in the middle will always be 12 by 2. That makes it easy to remember. I'm gonna do that, and when I'm almost done with it, I'm going to show you how to fasten it off, just to make sure, show it one more time. And then I'm going to repeat the explanation about how to join. And we're going to look again whether we need to join with method B or whether we need to join with yet another method. So method A was for the first color of every strip, and method B was when you needed to start with these horizontal double crochet. And then of course there needs to be a way to start with vertical double crochet. So I am going to show you that this week, and we'll see as we go along which join need which method for joining. I'll be back shortly when I've finished this panel. So when this at the bottom is 12 wide, you can also see that because there's 2 blocks here, and that means you need to keep 2 blocks left over there. So if you're wondering with the counting, I think counting is relatively easy with corner to corner, but maybe you find it also easier to look at the strip below. Then of course we're not going to have it end up with this little weird shape, so you have to make this last block. And then after you finish this last block, you always want to make sure you end up in the corner of your color. So we make another slip stitch into the chain space of that same block, and then we can cut the yarn. So now you look in your schematic, or you look in your color drawing or whatever you made to see what the next color is going to be, and you go and get that. The third and the fourth color of this strip are done in exactly the same way. So I'm going to show you the first block of this one, and then I'll trust that you can just carry on. So we attach again into this corner where you've already done the previous slip stitch in. So that's the same space. Now we're going to chain 3 and make a slip stitch in between these 2 green blocks. Then we're going to chain 3, turn the work around a little bit, and make 3 double crochet into that chain space you just made. Then we're going to make a slip stitch in the first strip, chain 3, and then make a slip stitch into the space that already has a slip stitch in it. And then chain 3, turn around, make 3 double crochet into the chain space of the same color you just created. Go into the chain space of this first block, chain 3, make 3 double crochet into that same chain space. My yarn is not cooperating today, but that's okay. Minor inconveniences. And then you're going to slip stitch into this corner thingy, so not into the place where you darned made the chain to be able to fasten off, but into the slip stitch, because that's easier to get into, and that's what you do all along, go into the slip stitch. Then we're gonna chain 3, turn around, and make a slip stitch into that same, or the chain 3 space of the same block, as it were. Now you can continue this color until you have made it 12 wide and 2 high, just like you did for the green one. Then you do the same thing for the next color. And then for the final strip, I'm going to get back to you. That's the black one again, so it may be a little bit difficult to see, but you don't have to make it as wide. So I'll get back to you to show you. And then next up is making the strip above this one, and then we'll see whether we need the same method or whether we need a different method to attach the colors. And I can show you how to check, because once again, I didn't show you that I checked it, but I always do. These are vertical double crochets and these are horizontal double crochets, and that's always what it needs to be. So always when you attach your new color, please make sure after making 2 or 3 blocks that it's
in the right direction, because you can make them in the wrong direction often, not always, but often, but then it ends up looking less nice. Then the colors are still in the right position, but the corner to corner flow of deep relaying blocks diagonally, you won't see that if you attach them in the wrong direction. That's just what that is. I'll continue on with this color and with the next color, and then I'll get back to you with the little black strip that we need to do at the end of this strip. The last one, the last color of this strip is going to be black again. I've put on all the lighting I can have in this room, and I hope it helps. It's the same process as we've gone through for the past 3 colors, so you should be fine. We're going to attach again into the same little space as where the final slip stitch of this round is. I'm going to make a slip stitch into it. Then you're going to chain 3. And then we're going to look at the direction of the double crochets. These are pointing up. So you want this next block to point in that direction. So we cannot attach it here because then it would go into the same direction. So we attach it here, like we've done for the other colors as well. So all the colors in this second strip are attached in the same way, with a slip stitch in between the 2 blocks, basically moving up. And then you're gonna turn your work around and make a little panel that is 6 wide and 2 high. So you want it to be 6 wide to finish it, to make it square with the previous strip, and 2 high to make it square with all the other ones. Nothing new is happening here, but please don't forget to fasten off in the utmost corner again. So after you've done your 6 wide, don't forget to do that, because then the edge of your blanket will look, or of your project, will look not so nice. I'll get back to you in a second. I'm going to show you again how to work away some ends, and then I'm going to show you the 3rd and the 4th strip, the other attachment method, the other join as you go method. And then you are good to go for the rest of the week. So there is just basically one last thing to explain, and that's how to attach when you don't want your first block to have horizontal double crochets, but when you want it to have vertical double crochet. So that's something still left to explain, and I'll get back to you with that bit of video. So please pause if you're crocheting along, make sure you finish this 6x2, and then get back when I get back with the video to continue. For the 3rd strip, so the 3rd color, when you look from the bottom to the top, we're going to do the exact same thing as we did in row 1 when it comes to the length or the width of the blocks. And we're going to basically do the exact same thing as we did for strip 2 when it comes to attaching the separate colors. So we're going to start in the utmost corner. We're gonna yarn over and pull through, and then we're gonna chain 6, make a double crochet into the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th chain from the hook. And then we're going to slip stitch into the slip stitch between the two blocks. It's a bit difficult to see because it's the black yarn, but you've done it before, so it should be easy. Then you're gonna chain 3, go into the next slip stitch and make a slip stitch, and then chain 3, turn your work, make 3 double crochet into that chain space you just created, then slip stitch into the next chain space, chain 3, and make 3 double crochet into that newly made chain space. Now you have made the height of your panel. You're going to chain 3, turn your work, make a slip stitch into the chain 3 space of the same block, and then you're going to chain 3 and make 3 double crochet into that same space. And now when you're wondering about which colors and which sizes for the panels you're making in this strip, you just look at the first strip and copy it. So we're gonna make this one 6 blocks wide, just like we did at the beginning, and then we're gonna make them 12 and 12 and 12, etc. So you're just gonna copy what you did here. Not that difficult. If you look in the at the drawing, you see that same thing. And what you then also will see is that the first block of this has horizontal double crochet. And then because it's an even number of 6, it's going to be horizontal, vertical, horizontal, vertical, horizontal, vertical. So that's for the 6 blocks. And then the next one is going to be horizontal again. So you're going to use the same joining method as you did here, because you already know how to make horizontal double crochet when you attach your new color. So this strip, you have all the knowledge you need to completely finish. And then in the next strip, because the black color again, it's the exact same thing as you did here. So the 4th strip is a repeat of the 2nd strip. You can see it in the coloring pages. And then the 5th strip, so when you start with red again, that's actually going to be a little bit different when it comes to joining the 2nd color. So you're gonna work this 3rd strip now, and then the 4th strip is a repeat of the 2nd. And then I'll get back to you when we're working the 5th strip, because that's going to include some new information about how to join when your first block is going to be vertical instead of horizontal double crochets. So grab a yarn and grab a hook and just make this 3rd and 4th strip. Rewind the video if needed, but hopefully you'll get along just fine. And then get back to me when you're ready to make the 5th strip of this gorgeous project. So what you've done now, this was week 1. This we did at the beginning of this week. So strip 2. Then you followed the same steps as you did for this strip, with the attaching here and then the attaching on 2 sides. And then you repeated strip 2. That's where we are now. Please take a minute to look again at the direction of your double crochets. I'm picking the green one here because the black is perhaps a bit difficult to see on camera, but I have horizontal double crochets here and vertical here. Horizontal, vertical, horizontal, vertical. You want to double check each and every join, as it were, if you have the opposites next to each other. This makes the corner to corner stitch have a certain flow to it if you make sure that it works this way. So what we're going to do for strip 5 is we're going to again attach in the corner like you've done a few times before now, like you've done here and here and here to be exact. So that's going to be the exact same way. We're just going to make it one block wider than this panel. So here we had 6 blocks side by side, and this thing is going to be 7 blocks. What that also means is that the join here is going to be for vertical double crochets because we move over one block. And when you've learned how to join the vertical double crochets, so start your block with vertical instead of with horizontal like you've done so far. Once you've done it for the vertical ones, you're good to go for the remainder of the project. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you how to make this 7 blocks wide, which is basically the same as what you did here. And then I'm going to show you how to attach the new color. And that will start with vertical double crochets. So what we're going to do now again is we're going to find the top corner. Make sure your stitch marker is on the front of your work. That should always be the case when you start a new strip. You find your little corner. You take your slip knot to the front of your work. And then you chain 6. And then you find the 4th chain from the hook and make a double crochet in it. And the 5th chain from the hook. And the 6th chain from the hook. Then you have made one block and we're going to attach it in between the 2 black blocks. I realize that the black is a little bit difficult to see. That's just the way black yarn works when you put it on camera. Luckily we have the red, which is quite visible, and you go into the black. So then you chain 3, then you look again for the stitch between the blocks. And you make a slip stitch in it. Then you chain 3, turn your work, and make 3 double crochet into the chain space you just made. I'm rushing through this a little bit because you've done this a few times before now, so this should be quite obvious by now, I think. Else you probably wouldn't have made it this far into the video. So we're going to make 7 blocks wide. These were the first 2 rows. It's high enough now, so I'm not chaining 6, but I'm only chaining 3. Then I'm turning my work, going into that chain space, chaining 3, making 3 double crochet into the same chain space, and then I magically already end up next to the next chain space, chain 3, and make 3 double crochets into it. And then I will go into the stitch between 2 blocks. So now I have 3 blocks on the bottom, and I want there to be 7 blocks for this strip. Now the information for each strip is going to contain how wide each panel should be and in which color it should be made. And also that it's always 2 blocks high. So you can use that or the schematic as a reference for how long and how wide your blocks should be. They should always be 2 blocks high, but the width of the blocks changes on the sides. And another slip stitch. So you keep doing what you've been doing for the past few strips until you have 7 blocks wide. So I'm going to get there to 7 blocks wide because I don't think this makes for interesting video for you because you already know. And then I'll get back to you how to fasten this block off and more importantly how to start the next one, because the next panel will start with vertical double crochets and then you're good to go. Then you know everything. So I'll finish this until it's 7 long at the bottom and then I'll show you how to fasten it off. Alright, so now the bottom of the strip is already 7 long. So this is just what you've been doing before. And then to end this block, I will chain 3 and then go up, as it were, and make a slip stitch in the chain space of the same block. And then chain 3. Make 3 double crochet into that same space. And what we're going to do then involves a few more steps again, because people tend to fasten off here, but then the top of this block looks really different than the top of all the other blocks, because all the other blocks have a chain 3 space at the top of them. So to make sure that we have the same, we chain 3. Then we go flip it over again and make a slip stitch into the utmost corner of this little panel. And then you can chain 1 and cut your yarn. And then this first color of the 5th strip is finished. Now I'm going to grab my second color and show you how to start with vertical blocks. Alright, there we go, the last new trick to learn. We're going to make a slip knot with our new color. We're going to put our hook into the join of the first panel of this strip and the 4th strip you made. So in that same little hole. You're going to grab your slip knot to the front. Now you can chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And now we're going to look. This is horizontal. So what would happen if we make a slip stitch here and make double crochets into that chain space, then this new block would also be horizontal. And that's not what we want. We want them to alternate all the time. So we're not going to move in this direction as you've been doing so far, but we're going to be moving in this direction. So your next slip stitch is going to be in the slip stitch between 2 of the blocks of panel 4, so of the previous panel. So you've made your chain space here. Then we're going to chain 3, flip the work, and make 3 double crochet into that just freshly made chain space. And if you want, you can put your yarn end over it a bit, so it's already tucked away a little bit. Then you end up next to the first panel of this strip. You can make a slip stitch into the slip stitch. Now you can chain 3. We're going to make a slip stitch into the space where you fastened off. Can be a bit tricky because you've pulled on this yarn, but it should still be doable. And make a slip stitch in there like this. Then we chain 3, flip the work, and make 3 double crochet into this same space. And from here on out, it's the same again as what you've been doing so far. So you do a slip stitch into the chain space of the previous block, you chain 3, you make 3 double crochet into this space, and then you make a slip stitch in between, or in the slip stitch between the next 2 blocks. Be careful not to skip a block here. Sometimes I find that I skip one and then I sort of make a little sandwich of it. And it may take a while for you to discover where that happened. So If you're miscounting, then try to put it flat, because if you've skipped a slip stitch somewhere, then you'll notice you cannot put it flat there. Then we're going to chain 3, find the next slip stitch between blocks, chain 3, turn the work around. And this way, this second panel is again going to be 2 high and 12 wide. I will get back to you at the end, because the fastening off is also a tiny bit different. And then I'll show you again how to start with a vertical block if you miss the instructions this time or if they're unclear. And then when I've showed you that for the second time, then you are good to go with the remainder of this week, where you make the first or bottom half of the project. So I'm going to finish this panel almost. I'll show you how to fasten it off, and then I'll show you how to attach with these vertical double crochets once more, so you're absolutely sure you get the hang of it, and then you are off. So I'll see you at the end of this blue one. If you have 12 blocks on the bottom for this panel, you should see that it's 1 off from this one. That makes sense, because this is also 1 extra from that one. So this is a way where you can visually keep track if you're doing it right. Please also count the blocks. Counting to 12 doesn't take very long. Then you're going to chain 3, flip the work, make a slip stitch there, chain 3 again, make 3 double crochet into that chain space, and then make a slip stitch into the chain space. And don't forget to chain 3, go back into the utmost corner, and there make a slip stitch, a chain, and cut your yarn. And then I'm going to show you one more time how to attach in a way that makes your blocks end up vertical, because as you can see, this block and that block have horizontal double crochets, so this one needs to have vertical double crochet. So I'll show you one more time, and then you're good to go. This panel starts with vertical double crochet again. You're going to go into the place where this slip stitch is also in. You're going to pull your yarn with the slip knot to the front of your work. Then you're going to chain 3. And we're not going up, which is what we would do if we wanted horizontal, but we want vertical, so we're going sideways, making a slip stitch into the slip stitch between the blocks there. And then we're going to chain 3, turn the work, and make a 3 double crochet into this space. And if you want, you can put your yarn end over it a bit. Now you end up next to panel, or the previous panel. You can make a slip stitch in between those 2 blocks on the side of it, chain 3, make a somewhat difficult slip stitch into that slip stitch in the utmost corner, again chain 3, and then you're good to make this panel. And it's a panel in the middle of the blanket, so it's 12 wide and 2 high. If you want, if this end has ended up here, you can put it on top of this chain space and hide it again in your 3 double crochet. That already makes sure it's quite sturdy, and it probably won't go anywhere if you cut it close to the project. I think from here on out you are good to go. You just have to pay attention each time you attach a new color, whether you want to attach it horizontally or vertically. The first panel of each strip is in exactly the same way as what you've done so far. That doesn't change because it's always alternating on the sides. So each bottom block of a new color has the same direction as all the other bottom blocks of the new colors. What does change is the width of the first and last panels in each strip. The middle colors don't change. When it comes to their width, they're always 12 wide. So please keep paying attention to whether you start with a horizontal or a vertical block, and then you should be good to go. You can, this week we do up until strip 19, and then next week we make the top part of the blanket, and then in week 4 we make the border, and if you want to make it a wall hanging, the hanging system. So for this week you're good to go. As always, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask them in the Facebook groups or in the comments on this blog or wherever you can reach me. On YouTube is also possible. So please leave your comments if you have any questions. But also please share your progress pictures if you have them, because I'm very curious what color combinations and what yarn combinations you all will come up with. So please don't hesitate to share your progress. We're all very happy to see more colorful stuff on our timelines. So don't think you are overstepping, or don't think you are sharing too much, oversharing, because I don't think there's such a thing as oversharing when it comes to nice and pretty and lovely colorful, squishy blankets and projects. So for now, this is goodbye. I will see you again next week and or on all the social platforms. Goodbye and have fun with your crocheting.